Welcome, welcome. We're back. All right, today I have Miss Jasmine, and I'm so excited that you are here to talk with us about judgment and the burden that that can be. If you want to start out just introducing yourself, telling us a bit about you and your kids, whatever you feel comfortable, um, and yeah, just let us know who we're talking with today.
Awesome. Hi. Oh, I'm so excited. I absolutely adore Sammy. She has got such an amazing intuitive quality about her that I just adore and appreciate. I'm Jasmine. I am a mom of five, which is one of the many reasons why I know Sammy. And I am an intuitive healer. I do lots of intuition work, chakra work. I am a crystal Reiki master and do crystal healings, astrology work. I got into all of the things. I was intuitive when I was young, but really shut it down. And through that, I had to learn how to overcome judgment of myself.
Mhm.
And as a mom, overcoming judgment of my kids, of the things that they did. And I I am so excited to talk today about how I have learned to overcome that. And I'm not perfect by any means of like now I have no judgments and I'm got all of it together by any means, but it is an awakening. It is an awareness that has helped me so much.
And it makes sense to me because I have to share that I was going through a really hard time, maybe like a year and a half or so ago, and you were one of the very, very, very few people that I really let you see like the ugly, the stuff that I was very judging of myself. We were just going through some really hard stuff with one of my kids, and on the surface, there's all the compassion and the love, and underneath that, there's like I effing hate this. This is awful.
Yeah.
And I felt I hadn't said that to anybody at the point that I talked to you. Um, and to be able to say these like dark, what felt like dark thoughts, and get them out of my
Mhm.
body, have somebody bear witness to like, yeah, it really is that hard. And that doesn't take away from you as a human or as a mother to have these dark. I keep using the word dark. Dark in itself can be a judgment. Um, for me, they felt dark. It felt heavy and it felt scary. And your ability to hold that for me, uh, not to be dramatic, but honestly, it felt like it saved my life. I was drowning, and hiding it because my kid's life is personal. It's not anybody else's business, and I also have a business to run, and I also have a family and a household, and I hadn't taken a moment to really be honest about how hard that was,
Mhm.
and you let me do that, and I will forever, ever, ever, ever love you. So I just think you're the perfect person to walk us through this journey.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
so thank you for
No.
being you and being here and being there for me when I really, really needed it.
Oh my gosh. So grateful, so honored to have been like the slightest little bit a part of that journey, because you were the one that like brought it, right? So I say I'm an intuitive healer, but am I a healer? No, I honestly, no. That word is not something that I own, but it's something so people get. Like they're just
Right.
like, oh, okay, we're doing something around like getting better, feeling better. And your journey of me going, "Oh, this sucks, doesn't it?" And you being able to go, "Yeah, it does."
Yeah.
That was where it's like there is a full light scale of emotions that we are supposed to, that we are allowed to feel, that we need to feel. Because in honoring those dark emotions, which I mean, it's valid, like that word is so valid to say, because there's like the dark, there's the ugly, there's the i'm I'm in bed every single day because this is so difficult, I can't get up, to I'm overjoyed and excited and like let's go, I want to wake up like at the crack of dawn because we're going to Disneyland. All those emotions need to be seen, need to be felt in order for us to be on this journey of life. And I thought it was just such a special moment that I was able to be there for the Sammy, this sucks. Like, It's okay to say, this sucks, this
Yeah.
is ugly, and this is hard. And I don't know if you actually said this word, but I've said this word before. I hate it. I hate this right now. It being in this, because I've got kids 18 years old down to 7, and it's kind of a spread.
Hmm.
And there's moments where I'm just like, oh, this is awful. Like I want to run away and hide.
Hmm.
And in that, that is where we see those emotions that go, okay, this is alerting us to not be like, how could I do this? I'm a terrible mom. I'm a terrible parent. I'm a terrible person for feeling this way, and go, something needs to change.
Yeah.
I do I need to call in support? Do
Hmm.
I need to relax? Do I need to like observe what is going on so I can be a catalyst to help make the change?
Hmm.
And that's where we come in and just go, one, the burden is not mine to judge if I'm a terrible parent right now, if my kids are the worst kids in the world, if if my spouse is good enough right now. We just go, no, we're releasing the judgment, because it's a burden. It is a heavy weight to carry. All those crystals behind you that I absolutely love and adore every time I see you on, it's like carrying all of those in a backpack.
Oh my God.
Not
I
worth
just
it.
taught a class to kids about crystals, and I carried, I don't know, maybe 50 of these pieces, and it was so heavy. I had to get help to get it because it was in a wagon and I couldn't get the whole wagon out. So I had the 2 teenage boys take the wagon out of my van for me. I can't imagine. That's such a great analogy, to carry like that heavy of a burden.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
feels in that weight in your soul. You feel it on your heart. You feel it in your
Mhm.
solar plexus. Like you feel it in your head. You feel the tension in your shoulders and your neck. Like it, if you're carrying a burden, your body will start to say, I'm going to show you how big of a burden you're carrying, and something will happen.
Mhm.
Your neck will go out, your back will go out, you'll get sick. Like, and so before that happens, before that major signal happens, we want to step back and just go, okay, let me look at see what's happening right now.
Mhm.
Where do the kids need to be in alignment, or am I out of alignment?
Mhm.
Because it could be either or both.
Yeah.
Like we need to be aware and look, and that takes stepping back and not being in the heat of it, right?
Mhm.
Like get out of the fire and allow yourself to just go, I'm going to look and see what's happening. Does my kid need immediate help?
Yeah.
Are they hurt? Are they bleeding? Are they like doing something super dangerous? We step in right away and we yank them out, right?
Mhm.
Um, if if we're like, I'm trying to figure it out, if they're older, like those teenage years, we kind of want to observe a little bit. And I
Mhm.
don't know, you tell me what you think too. But I'm kind of like, I want to observe, like, is it friends? Are you being the problem? Is this
Mhm.
something I need to step into? Or do I need to respect your journey in this? Is there
Mhm.
something for you to learn?
I just got chills. There's something that is so unique about this culture, um, where good parents feel like it's their job to very, very tightly hold on to their teen's experience, and they have a visceral reaction to observing their child's journey. Your child will experience heartbreak, and they will experience, you know, disagreements with their friends, and
Mhm.
it's not for us to be like, oh no, but Sally's really your friend, you can't say that to her, that's mean. And it's like, well, that might be how she feels, and maybe she's not handling it in the most mature way because she's not mature yet, but this is the experience of friendships and loss and conflict. And they, when we have the capacity to tolerate distressing feelings, we do a lot. We create our own release, right? We're not carrying that
Yeah.
burden. We teach our children that it is possible to tolerate distressing feelings.
Mhm.
And
So good.
that is huge. There's going to be distressing feelings in people's lives. And so when we learn for ourselves how to tolerate those distressing feelings, they see that it's possible. Even if they're still having a hard time learning that, they're on that journey to learn that. They know it's possible. They have something to aim for. And then 3, we start to teach them we believe in their capacity to become the leader of their own life.
Hmm.
And I think that I've watched you coach several times, and it's something you are so good at, is noticing when people are trying to take ownership of somebody else's journey. You're like, and even when they are like, that's not what they're saying, right? Like it's subtle sometimes, the signs. And you'll so gently kind of bring them back and go, is it possible that might be their journey? And every time I'm like, oh, yes, because I have a propensity to do it, you know? And I want to, for those of you like me, sometimes it is valid because your child is very, very young, or because there's a medical issue or a learning disability or something along those lines where like they actually do need more support than a standard situation. But there still has to be this divide. And okay, so now I'm forgetting who somebody trained with you, and I can't remember who it was. It was a couple years ago. They had done like coaching with you, or done a class with you. And then I was talking to them, and they gave me this visual of this path, and that it wasn't my job to like hitch my kid on like a backpack and walk the path for them. It was my job to link arms with them and be like, okay, let's walk. And I was like, oh, that's so different. Like energetically, emotionally, that's so different.
Yeah.
And when your kids have faced scary things, medical things, mental, emotional things, at least for me, I think that you need somebody outside to go, hey, psst, step back. Just take a big step back. Because from that place of love and maybe positive intention, you end up taking on, or I ended up taking on so much that it was giving the message of you can't do it.
Mm.
I have to do it for you. And that's never what I actually want.
Yeah.
So yes, there are their own people with their own journey and their own path. So, I mean, gosh, there's so many ways we could go with this. If you find yourself resonating with this and you're feeling like, oh, shoot, I'm doing that. I'm taking over too much. I'm not respecting them on their journey. And then you start spiraling into your judgment and shame about that. What's the next step?
One, if you are going to remove the burden of judgment from the situation, oh, my kid messed up again. Ah, they're just being too dangerous. Oh, I should have done like X, Y, Z and ABC and 1, 2, 3, because I just should have known better. That is where you also start to look at yourself as a child and go, would I do this to my friend? Would I say, yeah, you should have known all these things. You should have done better? Because generally, we're never going to say that to our friends. We're never going to feel that about our friends, because we know from the outside that like there was no way to know. There was no way to know that those things were happening. There was no way to know that you needed to start taking steps to stop all of these things. We didn't know that your child came into the world with this food allergy until they had the anaphylactic shock. And then you start doing the things that you need to do.
And I think that reaction, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. And after you are aware that like, oh, I actually wouldn't do this to my friend, I'm going to start treating myself better. And so I need to start with treating myself like a friend versus treating me like me right now.
Yes. And there is scientific literature to back up what you're saying, that when we can see ourselves in the third person, we light up a different part of our brain. When we're in the I, it's very easy to feel all the shame and bubbling, all of the feelings. And when we're able to step into the third person and view ourselves as a friend, or what my husband will say to me is, what would you tell a client? And it does the same thing to me. I'm like, okay, right. And I can feel it. I can feel the shift. And then I can feel the resistance to accepting that truth, that you can't know everything. And what I've learned is that desperate desire to, that I should have known, is really, really, really wishing that the bad, shitty, annoying thing, whatever it was, didn't happen. And we can wish that, but we also have to accept reality. It did. So looking backwards and living in that space isn't actually helping. It's not giving you your power and your autonomy to move forward and make change and make a difference. And it's something that it's interesting, because I kind of wonder, this is the first time I've ever had this thought, so roll with me for a second. How much of maybe traditional parenting ideas contributes to this pattern, such as, go to your room and think about what you've done. Go sit in the corner and think about what you've done. This idea that you should ruminate about the past and sit there and like feel shame as if that's the key to doing better. Instead of, yeah, this isn't great. We've assessed that. How did we get here, and what pieces do we need to go forward making a new choice, making a new, decision, choice decision, but also outcome, um and it's some of it is more functional than that. Sometimes when a parent sends their kid to their room, it's literally so they can cool down, and like I get that sometimes you need that space and that distance, but it's so cultural, this idea of sit and think about what you've done, and underneath that is the belief that if you do that, then you'll do better, and that might not be what makes you do better.
That is so interesting. That's such a brilliant way to put it, because are we instilling the go judge yourself and then feel extra bad about it and continue to sit in that low vibration? And when I can't remember if it was my last 2 or my last 3 kids, I would tell them to go take a moment. Go take a moment. And I wouldn't tell them to think about it. I would say, go take a meditation moment. And they would go to their rooms, and they knew how to take meditation breaths. And they would breathe until, like, getting grounded, getting back into their body. Because if they're really worked up about something, whether we can say it's their fault or somebody else's fault, just like back away from the situation. You don't need to be in that. Like, let's get you away from there.
Right.
And go take a meditation moment. And then when you come back, we'll talk.
Because to me, that speaks to regulating and interrupting reactive behavior before it becomes damaging, and choosing the path towards being able to respond instead. I think that's the difference. It's not intended as this shaming experience, hoping that if you make them feel bad enough, then they'll be different. It is intended to utilize the tools that you have, while you still are at home and you've got a mom that can recognize, like, I'm seeing the signs, this is going to be a meltdown. Let's pause that. Let's not go all the way off that cliff, and use the tools that you have to regulate yourself for everybody's sake. I think that the child themselves also feels a lot better when they can respond rather than react.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, when they feel that, like, I'm not being judged here, I'm being supported, I'm being helped, like, how much more are they going to come to you? And when times get really tough, because as the teenage years hit, like, people said that was a lot. I didn't realize until I was in it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh yeah, now I get it. But now I get the teenagers that come in at 10, 11 o'clock at night, and they want to tell me about their day. They want to tell me how things are going. They want to tell me the good and the bad and the ugly. They came to me during some really tough things, some poor choices. And I'm like, I hope that's a reflection of me removing that judgment that I really did have when they were little.
Yeah.
Because I had expectations of, like, this is how we're supposed to look as a family. This is how we're supposed to act as a family. Like, I used to think you represent me. Like, how ugly is that to say right now? Oh, it's so hard. I felt like you're a reflection of me, of our family. And that's so not true. So when I began to go, no, I'm respecting your journey, it totally lifted all the strings off, all the tethers that were tied to me. And I was like, let me see you shine.
Yeah.
And that felt so good. Yeah, you're going to make mistakes. So did I. I want you to avoid some mistakes, but you can still shine. But some of those things you're going to have to learn.
Yeah.
You're going to have to work through. And that is going to get you to the next step that you need to be in. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
My son yesterday. Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. I just agree with you. I think that when we have that feeling of you reflect me, we are really giving into the judgment of others, whether it's society, friends, family. Um, and we're putting such an impossible burden on children because we can't actually control what other people think.
Absolutely.
If we're operating from this place of you have to look a certain way to make me look a certain way so that we can control what everyone thinks about us,
Yikes.
sorry, that's not going to work anyway. And there's a lot of unintended consequences of that. And when we instead are able to, I try to reflect to my children, I'm responsible for my behavior. That's my job. I will critique my own behavior to see, is this how I want to act? Is this something I could improve on? Is this something I feel pretty comfortable with? Even when somebody tells me I'm wrong. I don't mind doing that, but it's not their job to manage my behavior. And I think that's an important message. Now, please tell me what your son said, because I really want to know.
Oh, so my 17-year-old, I took him to a lacrosse game yesterday where we have totally become the big lacrosse family. So, took him to a lacrosse game yesterday so he could see some colleges play.
Mm-hmm.
We know people on both sides, and he said, oh, I kind of just wish I was like 11 years older and I already had like money coming in and my career going, and I just could kind of do the things that I wanted to do. And I was like, I get that.
Mm-hmm.
But also there's so much to learn along that path that if you don't learn it, you're not going to know what to do when you get there. I mean, it's kind of like the 13 going on 30 thing. Like she woke up and she was like, oh my gosh.
Right.
And she didn't totally know how to run her career. She didn't know the people in her life. And it's so important to experience all of that along the way.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, I get it, buddy, but also learn to enjoy the moments that you have because you're 17. This is such like an amazing time of life.
Yeah.
It can be. Love it.
And there's such an opportunity to recognize that there's good and bad in every season.
Absolutely.
I
Oh my
think,
gosh.
our teens, so many of them honestly just want to be seen. They
Yeah.
just want us to be able to see them. And I remember being told at, I don't know, 15, 16, you don't know what real problems are. You don't have anything to worry about. You don't understand real life. And it's like the amount of that that's true doesn't negate the fact that this is my life. My best
Absolutely.
friend hating me because of a stupid car engine, that's devastating.
Yeah.
I don't have children and a marriage and a career. So what I have was taken and it sucks. And
Yeah.
I'm allowed to feel that. And I feel very grateful for the brain I have because I had that thought then. And I was like, yeah, you don't get it. Cool. But I'm not letting go of that belief that I'm allowed to feel how I feel about this. It does suck. This is, one of the biggest losses I've felt, and I should be sad about it. So
Yeah.
I guess I just won't tell you.
It's so true. As a kid, I had this boy, like 8th grade, that I dated, right? And I broke up with him. He was like the big 8th grader though, and he went around to all of my friends and threatened them. Do not sit with her at lunch. Don't talk to her. You're not allowed to talk to her. I was devastated. I ended up having 3 of my best girlfriends. They would come and sit with me far away from everybody under a tree and just like, this is so dumb. I'm so sorry this is happening.
Mhm.
I at least had them,
Yeah.
but all of my other friends, and I was so social. And that was so hard.
Mm-hmm.
I brought that up to my kids so many times because it was all of 3 days. And I'm like, all things come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
All things have cycles. So
Mm-hmm.
just let's keep going through this. And if it keeps going and you need me to step in, I will step in. But don't give up
Mm-hmm.
because we know that this is just one small part of the journey.
Yeah. And I
And
think that is something that is really interesting. I learned that This sounds so silly to say I learned, but I did. I learned as an adult at like 33, 34 that huge, ginormous feelings get smaller with time.
Yeah,
And like,
right?
it's so
Yeah.
funny because obviously I've experienced feelings, but I've had my experience of certain feelings, particularly rejection or abandonment, has been all consuming, overwhelming, feel like I'm going to die kind of stuff. And there's reasons for it. The reasons aren't important here, but being able to consciously comprehend, yeah, right now it's as big as the house. And then it's going to get as big as the room. And then it's going to get as big as a book. And then it's going to get down to the size of a marble. And I had this conversation with my 8-year-old, and I gave him a little tiny like crystal. I was like, well, I'll sit with you until your anger is about this big again. And I'd just check in with him, and he would tell me like the sizing. And I'm like, this is so cool that he's grasping this so much earlier than I did. But it is that life experience. You get to this point where you're like, yeah, this is awful, and all things come to an end.
Yeah.
All things eventually feel more manageable. Even really hard, sad things. When we lost our first pregnancy, and I remember feeling just so overwhelmed and so hopeless, and then angry. I was so sick of people trying to tell me that I wasn't allowed to feel how I felt. And really not believing that would ever change. And then watching that grief morph and change over time to be understandable, something that was felt more of an acquaintance than an attacker. And it's like, yeah, that is sad. And I would have this fourth child in theory. And, I wonder how he would have turned out and who he would have been. And like, those things are really interesting to consider, but it isn't the, stabbing me in the heart, paralyzing, panicky fear anymore. And that is my journey. That doesn't mean that that's the same for everybody. I know that different kinds of loss in different seasons of your life and different seasons of their life can be radically different than that. But I think I've heard that grief doesn't get smaller, but your life keeps expanding. And so the pain itself is acute. It's just not getting hit right on the head quite as often.
Yeah.
And I was like, that seems about accurate for me. And for teens, they don't know that yet because they haven't had the opportunity yet to move through that. That doesn't make them dumb. That doesn't make their feelings invalid. It's just part of the learning and experiencing. And in the teenage years, the part of the brain that's hyper developing is the emotional center. And the part of the brain that is very, very slowly eking along is the emotional control center. So it makes sense that these feelings feel so intense, and they need somebody who believes them and believes in them. And that's the kind of balance that I talk about a lot. It was actually today's reel, part 2 of the 100 conversations to have with your kids before they turn 18. And
Awesome.
I think that it reminds me of the phrase, if it could have been any other way, it would have.
Wow.
And sometimes I love that phrase and sometimes I hate it. But I think about our kids, and I think about the things that they've gone through and the journeys they've been on already. And, it's sometimes you see them doing something and you're like, oh, that's not going to end well. And it's not life threatening. It's just going to hurt. And you watch because this is part of their journey, and part of what makes them who they are is experiencing that particular struggle, that particular feeling, frustration, challenge, whatever that is. And every time that we're like, oh no, I'm going to prevent them from facing that, I'm going to cut in and take over and not let them make any decisions in their own life, that experience is robbing them from those growth pieces, from those elements of who they are that they get to look back and go, man, I did this thing when I was 16 and I learned I never want to do that in a relationship again.
Yeah.
And to learn that at 16, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
all of what you're saying. I mean, because you're so right. Like, as these different awarenesses are developing, different parts of their brain are developing. I loved what you were like, it doesn't develop until this time. It follows the development of all of the chakras
Mm,
really awakening and opening up because we aren't born with all of our chakras open and
really?
alive and
I did
like
not know this. Do
fully
tell.
functioning. So we're born with our really our root chakra is the only one that's really open and it's really active. So we have them all, but they're not really developed until we hit certain stages in life. So we start with that root chakra. This is immediately eating.
Mhm.
This is immediately knowing where we belong and who we belong with. And then we move up into, we see that toddler phase of those emotions opening up. I do it. That's mine.
Mhm.
Me. Like that is our emotions. And there's like crying. There's the terrible twos. We move up into where they're becoming, or they're asserting their willpower, and our solar plexus opens up. And, we start to see that more like those older toddler years, early elementary years where they're like really asserting themselves. They're
My
like jumping up.
4-year-old told me yesterday, "You are bossing me. You can't boss me. You are not the boss of me." And I went, "Huh. What I think you're saying is please say that kinder." And I repeated what I had asked her with in a nicer way. And she goes, "I can do that because I'm a nice girl." That girl knows who she is. Oh my word.
And thanks to you, right? I mean, what 3-year-old is really going to see that unless they're brought into a home that's like so full of awareness and so full of like, let's learn together, let's lead together. Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I think I had told her, like, get out of my room because she kept coming in while I was recording videos and she knew I was recording videos. And oh, it gets even better. I forgot this part. I was like, you need to get out. And I wasn't mean, I wasn't yelling, but I was just made a statement. And that's when she said, you are bossing me. You can't boss me. And then I told her, I was like, could you please leave and let me record my videos? And she says, I can do that because I'm a nice girl. And then she goes, and you should lock the door. That'll remind me. I'm like, boundaries, respect, girl.
Okay. All right.
And it's so wild to watch her tiny, tiny little body like just own her space in the world,
Yeah.
And then at the same time, she's when I was my 8-year-old has sensory stuff and he will sometimes feel like he wants to like burrow into my skin. Sometimes I can
Mm,
tolerate it, sometimes I really can't.
yeah.
And this one day he kept doing it with his feet and his feet were so ice cold. It was like painful. I was like, I need you to stop digging your toes into my leg.
Yeah.
It hurts. Do not like it. And Kaylin, the 4-year-old, she goes, is that your boundary? I was like, yes, that is my boundary.
Yes.
And realistically, boundaries being what I will or will not do, the boundary is if you cannot stop doing that, I'm going to move my entire body.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to sit here because ow,
Yeah.
because I have my own sensory stuff, and cold is not my friend.
Yeah.
Uh, and but it was just so funny that she heard this conversation and like her brain was like boundaries, like
I
she's
love it.
her.
I love it.
This girl's wild. I love her. I love her so
That's
much.
amazing because they start to be aware of that so they can start to incorporate that and just go, hey, like instead of having the like whiny bratty, no, I don't like that. They're like, that's my boundary. And you're like, oh, like that's more off-putting than just the
Yeah.
and you're like, oh,
It's so
I will
amazing.
back
It
away.
feels almost like out of place. Like it's so mature for
Yeah,
her chronological age.
for sure.
So is that all solar plexus awakening?
Yeah, I would say so. I
Okay.
would say like asserting your power, asserting your will.
I love that.
It is setting up those boundaries. It is allowing your boundaries to set up a space for you to create your joy. And
Mm,
it's so marvelous to see. And as a parent, so frustrating because you're like, no, we need to get in the car now.
yeah.
Like, put on your jacket. It's 32 degrees outside. And they want to assert their power. And, in a safe way, you're like, all right, I will let you test this.
And it's gonna
Um,
be cold.
Yeah. And so my big thing with 4 boys, It's like, why didn't you bring it just in case? It's always the just in case. Ugh.
Yes, just in case you change your mind. Not that
Yeah,
mom's right and knows what she's talking about. Never that. But just in
right.
case you decide that your body would like a jacket in
Yeah,
the actual freezing weather.
yeah. And it's like, there's been times where they've forgotten and they're like, that's a good idea just in case. And I'm like, yeah,
Mhm.
I'm not here to tell you right or wrong. Like, just
On the
know.
jacket. On other things, yes, definitely.
Right, right. On the jacket, like,
But my
I've
kids
heard you
wear
complain
shorts in the
before.
snow.
Why do they do that?
I don't understand.
Why do they do that? There's a
It's so
funny, funny
wild.
reel going around. It's like when it gets 40 degrees in Utah, it could be the same thing in Idaho. It's like all these 12-year-old boys running around with no shirts on playing football. And it's like, yep, that's it.
Uh-huh.
It's so hot outside, mom, as they walk in the door from school. I'm like,
It's
okay,
50 degrees. Yeah, it was
good for
50
you.
degrees. Was it yesterday or the day before? And my kids were shirts off, running around. Like, you
Okay.
I'm waiting for summer weather for that. Okay, so what comes after solar plexus?
Solar plexus, and then we move up to heart chakra.
Okay.
So, heart chakra, we are connecting. All of a sudden, this is where we start to open up socially. This is where we start to feel uh, other people's feelings and go, "Oh, I really care. I really care that he was mean to her."
That's
And
so
this is where we start
interesting.
to, this is where clicks can start to form because we're connecting energy to energy. And we want to be careful about the clicks and things, but this is where we're like gravitating towards the people that we're matching energy with. We want to make sure that we match energy with the right people.
That's awesome. So one of the conversations I have with my kids is about qualities of people as opposed to
Mhm.
chasing a specific person. Because my kids aren't in public school, so I don't maybe have to deal with this as much. But we're in co-ops and stuff.
Yeah.
And when a kid is wanting to be friends with somebody, that's great. I like to have just a few seconds of conversation about what is it about them that is friend material? Like, what is it that you're drawn to? Um, because I think that it lays this groundwork for assessing who you allow in your circle and not accepting every breadcrumb, which is who I was at once upon a time. Um, and being able to say, I look for friends that exhibit these qualities. And then that turns into romantic interests too.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people in the past couple of years who have gotten divorced, and part of their story is just, I married the first available person. I didn't really think like I'm looking for these qualities. I kind of thought I'm supposed to be married, so you'll do. And, and it's not like they're even terrible people. Some of those have happened too, but um sometimes it really is just, I'm just learning in my 30s or 40s that I can actually choose. I'd really hope that that's not one of the paths my kids have to walk. So the only part I can really control is, making it part of the conversation that they get to kind of assess the qualities they're looking for in their friends and their partners. And then they too make sure that they're exhibiting those qualities if that's what they're looking for.
Yeah. Are you the person that you would want to go out on a date with, that you would want to go have a sleepover with or go hang out with? And it's like, think about the people that you want to be around. Why do you want to be around them? Why is there such a draw? And then proceed to either make adjustments or become that person that you desire to be
Mm-hmm.
because they're amazing, because they're awesome, because they're helpful, because they're loving. Not because they're cool, not because they wear the best clothes. That is not who they are.
Right.
And yeah, it is hard because like your 15-year-old self, this is my perspective. This is what's important to me. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Like that is your perspective. You can only see out of the filter that
That
are
you
your
have right
eyes.
now. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's totally okay. But let's work within that. And this is where we really need to figure out, am I going to lead you through this, or am I going to partner with you and we just have conversations every now and then, or am I going to totally like back off and let you have the reins and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just there to listen at 10 p.m. at night?
Mm-hmm. And there's a place for each one of those. And I think I think in this description, even if they are, they're friends with the most popular person and she's got all the Gucci, whatever, I think that's still popular. I don't know because I don't do brands. I really don't. I know what Gucci is, but I don't buy Gucci. But for at least a moment, that was a thing. My sister is probably laughing hysterically at me right now. She's much better at that world. Point being, there's often a way, and I talk about this in my book on the chapter on perception. There's often a way to frame behaviors or characteristics that seem challenging in a more positive light. So maybe it's that you're drawn to this person's leadership ability, right? Like they walk in a room and they have something that just captures the audience, their charisma, their confidence. I know that I was sometimes drawn to people that could be described as bitchy. That was a common word. But really when I assess that for myself, it is this, I know me. I'm not looking to all these people to decide who I am. I know who I am. And that was so appealing. And partly it was appealing because it was an aspirational recognition. Like, I want to be in that place. And partly I think it was appealing because it felt a little safer being somebody who was a chronic people pleaser and ended up in codependent situations. I didn't have to really worry about with them. They weren't going to need me to fix them, fill in their gaps. That's not how those people are. And it's like a breath of fresh air.
Right.
So even some, if the first answer seems a little bit shallow, sometimes there's a way to dig in a little. And some kids, they don't want to talk about it right now. That's fine. One of the things I do a lot with teens is just plant seeds. I'm not asking you to fully buy into my theory on anything right now. Your life, your friends, your people. Maybe this is something worth considering. Yeah, Mom, okay. And they move on.
Yeah.
But the seed's been planted. And it might be, sometimes it's a year later. And they're like, remember that thing you said? I'm like, vaguely. Like, oh yeah, I noticed this. I'm like, oh, I'm glad I talk.
Yeah, it is. You'll never hear more than 1% of what they captured and used. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. You just know and trust the process of like, I know spirit, I know something will help them that will trigger what they need in the moment. Yeah. You have to trust it, or like you're going to walk on eggshells your whole life.
Yeah.
It's so hard to parent if there is no trust that things will work out.
I agree. We can't walk on eggshells, and it puts such a burden. Our kids can tell when we're not okay. Oh, and that doesn't mean we always have to be fine. We can have feelings, we can have emotions, we can have seasons. But what will end up happening is they will resent this idea that they need to be something for us to be okay.
They're trying to fit in that hole that we are missing. And gosh, it's hard for us because now we have this like level 10 clinger who's trying to fix us. So sweet, such good intention. But then they don't fit into it and they get frustrated. And then we start to see that start to spin and those escalating moments. And it's so tough where I hope that my kids are learning enough independence, but enough like mutual respect for each other, like within our family, that it's like, it's okay that I don't need to fill in your holes. I'm going to let you go on that journey and figure it out. And
what a cool message to have, because it applies to everybody from 7 to, whatever your age is. You look about 25, so I'm. You can't
bless your heart. I love you so much for that.
But my point is, it becomes a family cultural value of each person is on their own journey, and we have pieces of that where we talk about, look, everybody is learning something. And it will be different, so the sibling who's great at reading does not mean anything about the sibling who struggles to read. The sibling who struggles to read is great at drawing. And that has nothing to do with the sibling who can't even write his name properly because he hates it so much, right? And these are different stages and different ages and all of that. But I think that one thing I try to talk to my kids about fairly often, they give me opportunities, is do not decide whether or not you're okay based on what somebody else has.
Amen.
Look at you. What are your needs? Are your needs being met? And if not, let's meet them. Let's figure out that. But that, well, she got 5 and I got 4. What do you need right now? What is it that you're needing that's feeling like a gap for you? And it sounds petty because, or insignificant. They're arguing about chocolate chips, whatever. But even just the shift from, oh, hey, could I have 5? That's just asking a question, declaring your wish. And that's perfectly fine. There's a risk in that constant scanning and looking for what everybody else has. And one of the paradoxical things that we can sometimes end up doing as parents that I learned, I don't know when I learned it, but it was one of those like, oh, shoot, moments, is if we try to make everything perfectly equal, we actually create that scanning and looking and checking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so much. I have absolutely adopted we don't do things equally. We do things fair. Because this kid, what is fair for him is that he needs new cleats because his ripped. It doesn't mean all of you now get new cleats.
Yeah.
We're doing what's needed.
Yes.
But you know what? You need a couple shirts because yours got ruined. And so we're going to get you some shirts. But it's this
It
all
is.
the time. We cannot just because someone turned 16 and got a new car, the 7-year-old doesn't get a new car.
Right. And you don't need to then spend thousands of dollars on the 7-year-old's birthday.
Absolutely.
They're 7. And I think the phrase that I will often say, and I've heard my 10-year-old say it to his siblings, fair doesn't mean we all get the same thing. Fair means we get what we need.
Yes.
And I'm like, they listen sometimes. This is glorious.
Yeah. I love it.
I love it. So from heart chakra, then you go to throat?
Yeah. Throat. Okay. So we're learning to speak up. We're learning to use our voice. We're learning to use creativity through communication. So are we telling stories? Are we speaking through our heart, letting our heart come up and express ourselves through compassion? Or are we misfiring there and maybe speaking through anger, past traumas, wounds, fears? And so our throat chakra, we start to develop our way of communicating with others. Are we a good storyteller? Are we a good poet? Are we a good writer? We start to it's where we start to stand up for ourselves and start to communicate back and forth with teachers in the class or with mom and dad and other family members that they're like, oh, they're really starting to grow up. You get those reactions when those kids are starting to really develop their throat chakras, and it's so fun. It's so beautiful.
And that's probably a place where a lot of parents would benefit from pausing and letting their child try, letting them practice the skills. I've seen anecdotal stories. I have not actually seen this in person, but so the internet says, parents coming into a college professor's classroom, and being like, why did you give my kid this grade or whatever? And it's like,
oh man,
the time has passed, mom. This is not yours.
You're late.
Second of all, that's really the wrong question to ask any teacher ever. They don't give grades. Your child earns grades. So you might be able to say, hey, could you help me understand what happened? My, 7-year-old worked really hard on this and got a D. I'm confused. That's a fine conversation. But your 17-year-old probably should talk to their own teacher.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's hard. And it's easier for them to push it onto you and be like, you do it, mom. It's the thing is though, this is your education. This is your experience. This is your grade. What do you want to do about it? And then maybe even biting your tongue and gritting your teeth because you don't like their answer. But letting them experience that small failure or that, minor setback, even though sometimes it feels really big. I remember making a choice. Perfectionist does not begin to describe how I operated in school. I had an assignment. I also have ADHD, and I've ADHD. Part of that can be paralyzing anxiety before you
Mhm.
can initiate something. And so waiting till the last second, because then there's finally enough pressure to at least get started. So the night before this report was due, I did all of it, made the whole thing, literally didn't sleep, maybe more than an hour. But I ran out of time to do the title page. One piece of paper. This teacher had a very, very, very strict policy about things being turned in on time. And as I sat there at my desk trying to finish this title page, everybody else turned their papers in. She took the basket back to the desk, and I just fawned. I just put it back in my backpack and didn't even try. I got a 0 when I had finished 98. I would have gotten a 90 at least, if not more. There was a rubric, but I could not tolerate turning it in incomplete. And I couldn't tolerate facing the possibility of her saying, yeah, too late. So I just accepted that it was too late and there was nothing I could do. 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100, the teacher might be like, what are you doing? Why didn't you turn that in? And I could be honest and say, I was finishing the title page. And she's like, I'm not giving you credit for the title page. You're supposed to do that at home. All right. But I didn't have consequences in my house were dangerous. It was literally violent and dangerous. So I didn't have this experience with conflict where I was like, it's going to be annoying, but I can handle it. Like I might die. Like that was the level my body was reacting.
Yeah.
And it's so important for me to create the energy in my home around these experiences that are like, look, sure, it feels scary. That's totally fair. And this is the situation we're in. So we're going to face reality. We're going to see what happens next.
Yeah.
And I genuinely, I've seen it with my kids. They'll come to me and be like, oh, hey, I broke this or, whatever. I was doing this and it was pretty dumb. And now there's a problem. And I really value that ability for them to face, something that feels difficult. And it helps me to keep in mind my reaction needs to first be, thanks for telling me, and let's see what needs to happen next. Sometimes we've got to pay to fix something. Sometimes we have to do, some wall repair. That's happened. Sometimes.
We're in the process of that right now.
But that's the life skill. It's not getting it all perfect and doing everything right the first time. It is looking at it and going, whoops, what do I need to do next?
Yeah.
And I think that, at least in my experience, I had to learn how to feel safe first before I could even try.
So true. So not diagnosed, but everybody that knows me, we're all pretty confident I've got ADHD too, because I work the exact same way. I wait until the last minute and I would get that dopamine hit of like the rush and the exhilaration and then type out this paper. But living in a pass and fail home where everything in your life is pass and fail completely thwarts and changes your ability to live with recognition of there's a spectrum for everything. I need to live on the spectrum of emotions. I need to live on the spectrum of light. I need to live on the spectrum of judgment and awareness and understanding. And that you are just such an incredible example of a generational changer. Like I just absolutely adore you and adore your story because I'm like, this is it. These are the people that I want to be around. I want to be surrounded by these people. I want these people to be my friends. It lifts me up. It's such a great example to me. I'm trying to live it, but I'm not perfect. And I'm okay with that.
Right.
But it took me so long to be okay with that.
You're so inspiring.
No, I'm listening to your story and I'm like, I love you.
Ditto. Okay, we only have a little bit of time left, but I really want to make sure we finish the chakras because
let's do it.
We keep going on tangents. That's on me. Okay, from throat, then we go to
third eye.
Third eye.
Third
eye.
So this is where we start opening up to interpretation, to visions, to knowing things that we don't really know, but we know. And this is where our connection to like I don't think I should do that. I don't think we should walk down that road. I like, I don't think we should go out to that party tonight. That's where some intuition and things start to come up. This is where we start to like actually really look at our dreams and go, what do our dreams mean? Like, what is my subconscious actually trying to tell me? What is my spirit trying to tell me? Oh my gosh, I'm a spiritual being. Like, this is where that kind of starts to really wake up. Now, that's not to say that this is not experienced through all of the ages. It is, but it really starts to get established. This is something that really starts to get established more in our 20s, more
Okay.
in those late teen years. Um, and this is where you're like starting to see your kids like really open up to like very deep, incredible conversations. And you're like, wow, awesome. Like let's get into this. If you're open and if you're in that space and have given them room to
Mhm.
show up with strange ideas.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
um,
think I mean, gosh, that's another thing I focus on a lot is for my children's ideas to have value in our home.
yeah.
Um, and, I think I heard a lot growing up, you don't know what you're talking about, you're a kid. And then at the same
Um,
time, I remember being 9 and I remember a 24-year-old, like family friend, probably related in some way, asking me like life questions. And I just told him what I thought. And he's like, that's really good advice. And this was not a creepy thing. He was very like sitting on a couch having a conversation. It wasn't like he was trying to get something out of me. It was just we were having a conversation. And I have always been known as the old soul.
oh,
Like
for sure.
that's just kind of how I've always been. So but I was 9 and there was this adult that was like, that's actually a valid idea. Like, that's a good idea. That's a good point. And when I was in high school, I remember my teacher asking me for my opinion on something. I don't remember how that happened, but it was like, I think she had just said something and then I had an opinion. And so I shared it and she was like, this is a good point. It wasn't like, I'm going to listen to this teenager, but it was like, there was at least some people that were like, you're you're not bad at this.
Yeah. Yeah. I
And
I
how
have to
funny to
bring up.
end up here. Like,
Oh my gosh. It's perfection. Really is. Can I tell everybody your sun sign?
yeah.
Okay. Sammy is a Virgo. And this is like one of two signs that is like, this is the mother. This is the one who takes care of everybody. This is the one who is the lifelong servant. This is the one who loves to learn. This is the one who sees details so well and has a beautiful way of going, hey, you overlooked this and this and this. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, you're so right. Like you've said so many things today that I'm like, oh, her Virgo is just shining beautifully
That's awesome.
because it I will say all the signs are so special, but I love when someone is like living in their sun sign where, and you live all of your signs so beautifully, you really really do.
Aw.
But this is why she's so good at what she does, because she sees the details and she's like, oh, this is where we can make little tweaks. And she has that gentle Virgo energy, which is why she's not like yelling at you and going, why did you not see this before?
Oh my God, I could never.
I know, I know. And that is why I've asked questions, because I'm like, I know Sammy's not going to yell at me.
I
But
have
some
such
people
admiration
do.
for people that are willing to face what they maybe didn't know before. The willingness to be open to somebody else's perspective, especially in parenting that is so vulnerable and raw, nothing but respect. There's just no other option. I can't fathom yelling at a parent. Like it is hard to be open enough to be like, hey, this isn't working. I need help.
Yeah.
That is a hard and very brave thing to do. And I find that courage to be so inspiring. Every post, there's times where I'm like, okay, this is a lot. We're calling a 4-year-old a bunch of really rotten names. That's a lot. Let's regulate, right? Like there's mothering a little bit, right? Of like, there's a line. But also even underneath that, like I know there's pain and frustration, and you probably aren't getting your needs met, and you're probably so just bone dry that you can't see past this moment yet. And that's okay, because I know that you will.
Yeah.
I know that once we are able to fill your cup a little bit, you're going to be able to release some of that stranglehold you have on control and breathe and give yourself grace, which enables you to give your kid grace.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I'm a human. There's certain things I've certainly judged in my life, but it's never been in response to somebody actually opening up and asking for help. I've seen some horrendous things in my world. And yeah, I'm still human. There's still judgment sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's never the one that's like, hey, I need help. It's like, I mad respect for that, you know.
Yeah.
That's something I'll always love about the parents in this group.
Yeah. And you can always go, hey, that was not the best, but we can change it.
Right.
And we don't have to, there's no judgment in that. Yeah, you're right. That wasn't the best. Let's move on.
Yeah. Let's
leave that
go
in the
forward.
past.
The next time that happens, because your kids will give you another chance to practice, I promise.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, for sure. Okay. So that was intuition. And then the top, right? The crown.
Yeah. So all of our chakras are intuition. I have taught a course on how all of our chakras are portals of intuition.
Oh, cool.
But excuse me. So crown chakra, this is understanding that we are part of the whole world. We are part of the entire universe. This is connection to divine, understanding we are also divine, understanding we can get clarity. This is where we start to allow ourselves to open up to other thoughts, other ideas, and not go, everything that I taught was the only thing that was true. And this is where we start to go, oh, what's your perspective? Oh, what's your perspective? And we really start to blossom as a human and go, this is why it's our crown chakra, and develop to the last, usually, I will say usually, because certain traumas can change things up of what needs to open up. So we are safe. And, but this is where we start to go, oh, I don't have to have such a strong hold on the control, on me being right, because that feels safe. I feel safe in the world. I feel safe as a being in the universe. And it's such a fun playground to be in when you can open that crown chakra. When we got third eye and crown chakra playground going on, then that is where we feel so much more free. Like we're already grounded. We've already got those bottom chakras open and functioning. And we go, yeah, I'm here now, but I can also travel mentally and go, there's so much more, and I can expand, and I don't have to be in this little box. And it's so fun to see people start to play around in that and go, I am a spiritual being. I am a human. I love myself, and I make mistakes. And that's where like it all comes full circle, and you're just like, yes, rest in that, live in that, be that.
So my last question for you, how do you define the difference between judgment and awareness?
It feels so different, I think. Awareness is taking that pause. It is taking the step back. So for me, like when I hear a crash in the kitchen, I literally pause my body instead of rushing out and reacting. And I'm like, everybody okay? And walk out. Like that gave me enough pause to walk out calmly to whatever just happened. But if I judge, I run out and start screaming. And I go, what just happened? Who just did that? And it is the difference of, am I going to pick up that sack of weight of all those crystals? Or am I going to set it down and be curious? And when I can not intentionally pick up that sack, that is when I set the stage for everybody that I'm a safe place. We're in a safe place. And no matter what's happened, we'll get through it.
Oh my God. I think that's the perfect place to end. So good. I love it. I could talk to you for 6 hours. I don't think that our audience is ready for a 6-hour long one, but hey, if I'm wrong, do let us know. We'll do some sort of live stream. We'll bring popcorn. Um, but how can folks find you? Because your wisdom is top notch, and I would love for them to find you and follow you and learn from you. What's the best way to do that?
Okay. You can go to abundantlymade.com, www.abundantlymade.com. That is my business name, Abundantly Made. I believe we are all abundantly made. I believe the earth was abundantly made for us and has everything that we need. There you can find sessions to work with me. You can find astrology readings. I will occasionally put my jewelry up on there that I make.
I love her.
And, and I will put it up. Use the code SURE20 and I will take 20% off
Wow. Thank
private
you.
sessions, astrology readings just for you guys.
That's incredible. Thank you so much. And I will say for you guys, if you've never done an astrology reading, Jazmin's really unique because she takes your information and your kids and is able to show you like, this might be where you're clashing, but this is where you can empower each other. And this is where you can learn from each other. And it's really unique. It's really, really empowering for like the whole family.
Yeah. If you guys want that session, look for, I forgot what I call it, but initially I was calling it the mommy and me sessions, but I'm like, okay, dads want this too. And it like we're looking at your relationship because you have so many gifts to give your child, but your child in return has so many gifts to give to you.
That one right there. It's my favorite. Yes, that was, it's really cool. I've talked about this before, but I genuinely believe that our children chose us and that they have lessons to teach us. And not all parents are open in this lifetime to learning those things. And that is a shame, I guess. But if you can accept that like this is a whole person and there are things they can teach you, it's such a cool experience.
Yeah.
It's so cool to be able to learn. Like my children have radically changed me in so many incredible ways. And who I've had to become to mother each of their unique types has helped me to grow in all of the areas. And I'm really grateful for that, So
I'm so grateful.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're in the world. You're incredible.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So grateful for you.
So much love. All right, guys.
All right.
We will sign off for now and we will chat with everybody later. Bye.